Hello YouTube, thanks for coming back to the Cassidy Car Cave. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the 2002 LB7 Chevrolet Duramax 2500 HD again. Last time I had done some work trying to get the injectors cleaned out a little bit, see if we could clean up the smoke that was coming out at idle. This truck has about 240,000 miles on it, and the injectors have all been replaced. It should be burning a little cleaner than it is. It seems to have gotten worse and worse over the last, I don't know, 8 or 10,000 miles. So the seafoam did its trick. I think it really did help quite a bit, but if I'm being honest, which you always should be, I think the seafoam probably finished up the O-rings that are inside the filter housing on these trucks. Now, the filter housings on these go bad pretty often anyways, and this one probably has never been done. So it didn't take much to dry those out the rest of the way and kind of ruin them. But I was coming back from Knoxville the other day, pulling a trailer, and the truck wouldn't start at a rest area. Just turned over, but nothing. And I came out, looked at the filter housing for the fuel filter, and there's just diesel on it. And of course that shouldn't be there. So I did a few things, pushed the plunger a couple times. It was obvious that it was just drawing air in instead of keeping air out. And I was able to kind of torque it and get it so that it would work and prime the pump. And I drove it straight home and got it here to the shop and haven't moved it since. But obviously there's O-rings and such in there. So I've got the rebuild kit. We'll go through the process today of rebuilding the filter housing for the fuel filter. And hopefully, if it's letting air in around those O-rings, which I'm sure it was, it may also be causing some of the smoking problems. So we'll get started. We'll do this and go through it. Kind of go step by step on this one. Basically what we're going to do is remove the pipe for the turbo so we got more access. And then we'll disconnect the lines for the fuel, undo the bolts, take this entire housing out, and then I'll go over to the bench and we'll go through replacing the O-rings. Put it all back in, and hopefully we got a clean burning diesel. These trucks will always be loud, right? They're not as smooth and quiet as the new common rail injection or direct injection, but it's a great truck. It still is a pulling machine, and I think this will help get things going, so at least I can drive it and not worry about getting stuck in Knoxville, because I actually have to go, well, to Charlotte, North Carolina. I've bought another car to fix up and sell on Cars and Bids. I'll be updating my YouTube channel with that shortly. But yeah, exciting. Big shock, another black Mercedes. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so first thing is we're going to take off the 2 clamp bolts that hold on this turbo pipe. Strange, they're 11 millimeters on the socket on these, but we'll undo these. We won't take this pipe all the way out of the way. We just want to move it so that we can get access to the filter housing. Here we go. Okay, so let's see if we can get this thing out of here without performing too much surgery. You could take the turbo pipe out as well as some other parts, but let's see how we do. We're just going to try to disconnect the fuel lines, unbolt it, and see if we can lower this out either down or up without doing too much major dismantling here. So take a look what we're going to do here. There's the fuel filter housing itself that's leaking. Get a good video shot there. So here's your plunger. Looks like 2 bolts back here holding it on, 2 supply lines, return line each, and some electrical connectors. We can take this off and lower it down and get it out that way. So first thing we're going to do is undo these 2 clamps on the fuel lines. Make sure you put something down below to catch the drips, because diesel's going to get everywhere. And then we'll try to get it out of there. Okay, so we have the intake fuel line disconnected. I'm going to crack the bleeder screw on the fuel filter housing just to kind of let some air into the system. Hopefully this will keep quite as much diesel from pouring around everywhere. Not sure if this is necessary or not, but we got to take that screw out later to replace the O-ring anyways. So let's go ahead and crack it open. It's a 13, and I'll put you in my eye perspective here. This is it right here. Get it on there. give it a little crack. Open it up a little bit. Hopefully that'll let some fuel drain out back into the system, into the tank, and not quite as much on the floor. Okay, we got both lines out, and really not that much diesel came out, so that's a good thing. Next thing we gotta do is there's the electrical connectors for the fuel heater that need to come out. So you have a red here. This one you just give it a little twist and it pulls right off. The other one, the ground, is using the filter housing as a ground. So you have to get a T20. You'll need that again anyways later. T20 Torx bit. And let's take this one out. And we can disconnect that little Torx bolt and pull that negative lead off. All right, if you saw my other video on doing the seafoam directly into the fuel filter, you know that there's a water float in the bottom of your fuel filter that we have to get that disconnected. So again, it's this connector right here. And just be very careful not to break that plastic. Use a pick to just push that down and it should pull right apart. Okay, so we have the intake and outlet fuel lines disconnected. We have all our electrical connections disconnected. Before you take off the two bolts that hold in the fuel filter housing, take the fuel filter out. It'll be a lot easier to untorque it now while it's still connected to the frame and to the body and to the engine. Then if you pull it out of there and try to take it apart, you're not gonna have much to leverage on. So get you a big old strap wrench or big old oil filter wrench like this. Reach in, get that loosened up, take that out of there. Okay, sun shining perfectly through the window of the car cave here, right in my eyes, so that's perfect. And General Motors and Isuzu have set the record for most fasteners within a 3-inch area with different sizes. So 12 millimeter to get the fuel filter housing off of the mount from the engine block. 2 nuts right here, right here. Take those 2 out and you'll have a fuel filter housing sitting on your workbench. I'll see you there. Okay, we've got our housing assembly on the table here and we're gonna take it apart, hopefully end up with parts that look like these. So basically we've got 2 O-rings, 2 seals, a 3rd O-ring, a new bleeder screw with O-ring, and 3 Torx head bolts that hold down the primer pump. So let's start by taking the 3 T20 Torx head screws out of the primer pump and we'll disassemble that. Okay, we've got those screws out. Now this is where you want to be a little careful. Pull out the fuel heater, but this little ball needs to stay in place or at least don't lose it. There's a spring on the bottom of it that's keeping it checked. So just be aware of that as you pull this out. There we go. You can feel the spring release. Here's the fuel heater. There's our magic ball that we don't want to lose. And the screen comes right out as well. Okay, the first O-ring we're going to take out is what they call the large O-ring. This one right here. It is very dry and crusty. I have no doubt this has 240,000 miles on it. A little surprised it's not even just falling apart in my hands. Clean this up nice. We get a nice new seal. That's one. The new one on. Very nice. All right. Now the second one usually goes around the fuel heater right here, but in mine, it's stuck inside the housing. Turn this over. It's right in there in the housing. Get that one out. And we'll just put it on the fuel heater. And it'll slide right in where it needs to be. Bring that up a little bit. Okay. And then the third one, we'll do this last, is right here. Brittle, dry, yucky. Bring that up. Install the new one. Nice and snug. This one back in. Now, in the plunger, open this up. You'll find two seals, fairly large seals on the plunger. Pull these off. I would guess these are all bad, but if I had to place money, I would say these are the ones that have hardened and are allowing air to go into the system. My symptom was when I tried to start the truck, it would not start. It would just turn over like it was out of fuel. The side with the lip in it, or the indentation, goes up. And so air was just being let into the fuel system. Air and diesel doesn't mix. Okay. All right, so that one goes in with that indentation, that lip down. All right. Down. Okay, we're ready to reassemble. We're going to start with the fuel heater back into the housing. Just put a little bit of Rotella or diesel, whatever you use for your truck, engine oil on both O-rings so they slide nice and easy back together. Put your spring in. Put the magic ball that I can't believe I haven't lost yet in. Lower it down. And just nice and gently seat that in there. You should feel the O-rings catch. And then your fuel heater sort of bottoms out, and you can loosely put in the two Torx bolts or screws that hold it in there. Slide that top O-ring back in there. Get it to fold up underneath that plunger, and you can push it the rest of the way down. Put your spring in. We've already oiled this O-ring. Alright, and we'll secure a couple of screws, and again, same thing, just go around it, tighten up a little bit each one until they're fully tight. That way it gets a nice even seal. Okay. You can hear it drawing air through the inlet. That's a good thing. Put our bleeder screw back in. There we go. Okay. Reinstall. Put your fuel filter back on. See how we do. All right, we got our fuel filter housing back on. Let's fire the truck up. First of all, see if it starts. That was an issue before. That's why I did this project, really, is because I was having trouble. Like I said, it just died at the rest area. It would turn over, but it wouldn't start. And you could tell when I popped the hood that there was just diesel fuel leaking around that fuel housing. Not supposed to be doing that. So we may get some improvement though with the smoking on the truck. We did get a lot on the seafoam injection that I did before, but if there was still air getting in the system, we may get some more improvement on the darker smoke at idle. So let's fire it up and see how we did. Okay, these trucks are super loud, so I'm going to yell a little bit, but it did fire up. Let's see if we got any leaks, and then we'll check and see how we're doing on the smoke. Everything looks good there. I'm just going to give it a plunger too, make sure there's not any air leaking around the plunger. Looks good. Definitely see it from here. It's still too blue for my liking. I'm going to drive it down to the beach actually. Well, anyways, I'm going on a trip somewhere, probably this weekend. I'll give an update when this video is over in the comments, and we'll see if it helped with the smoke at all. But it definitely helped with the no start. Thanks a lot.